Hi again, everybody. My name is Chuck Guglielmo, and welcome to another edition of Around the Town with Chuck, a weekly interview show where we talk with interesting people. And today my guest is from Media One Radio, Dave Miller. Dave, how are you?
I am good. I'm not certain I'd call myself interesting, but okay.
You're very interesting, and you have a very distinguished voice, and I'm sure everybody in Ashtabula County, I know you go to Lake County, portions of Geauga County, and even into northwestern Pennsylvania. So your voice is heard all over, so that makes you an interesting person. Dave, let's start, before we get into radio, I want to talk a lot about your radio stations there at Media One and your broadcasting career. But first tell us, you're not originally from Ashtabula.
No, I grew up in Massillon. If you're not familiar, it's about 8 miles west of Canton, about an hour south of Cleveland.
How did you end up in Ashtabula and when?
I met my wife at a wedding in 2004. I was a fraternity brother of mine from college. His mother, Julie worked with, my wife works with. And so I met her there at that wedding, and I started dating her, came up to see her, moved up about 8 months later, got my job with what was then Clear Channel Radio, is now Media One Group, and I've been in town ever since.
Well, Clear Channel, and then you transitioned over to Media One about a few years ago, was it?
2007, September 2007.
What was the transition like in terms of, were there very many changes made as far as formats or anything like that?
There were a few format changes, just a couple, most notably 102 Zoo became Magic 102.5. We switched to a more, what they call a classic hits format, older songs, older generation kind of stuff. Just not not what the young kids are listening to, we will say. And then we switched over ESPN 970 WFUN from news talk to all sports. Let's
talk about some of these radio stations. Of course, ESPN 970, known as the sports giant. It covers a lot of national sports, plus it does a lot for the local sports. The Indians, the Cavaliers, the Browns are on there, as well as Ohio State Buckeyes. You do your high school sports there with Brad Ellis. And it's really when you say sports giant, it really is for the Ashtabula County area.
Yeah, it's funny. We call it the giant because our daytime signal, it's a 50,000 watt AM signal, and the way radio waves work over the lake, there's nothing to stop radio waves from flying over the lake. So you can hear it. I've picked it up as far as the Upper Peninsula of Michigan before. So you can it really covers a wide range, and that's why we call it the giant, because you can hear it pretty much everywhere.
Now, sometimes you move those broadcasts, like I was coming back the other day from Cleveland, and I think it was Cleveland. Somewhere, I was coming back somewhere, and the Indians happened to be on 98.3 The Bull, which is a clearer station. So when you have another broadcast, such as you do a minor league baseball broadcast on ESPN 970?
Yes, yeah.
That's when you move the Indians over to the Bowl?
Yes.
And then the Browns and the Buckeyes move over to Classic Rock Station?
The Fox, yes. We unfortunately we do not have the Browns this year. We were not able to make an agreement with them this year, so they're on another station now. But the Buckeyes are still with us, and they'll be with us for as long as, for the foreseeable future. And so anytime there's a conflict, the Buckeyes, all games will air on 107.5 FM, the Fox. When there's a conflict, then they will not air on ESPN 970, but something will.
Of course, my favorite is the Cleveland Indians. I don't know if you know that or not. How did you make the determination as to what stays on the AM station and what goes to the FM station?
It's really just simple logistics. What's easier for us to make things work? It's easier for us locally produced programming. When it comes to sports, it's easier logistically for us to put it on ESPN from a simple equipment standpoint. And so because of that, then the Indians get moved over to 98.3 at that point.
Now, you also do an afternoon talk show sometimes on ESPN, a sports show.
Yes.
Late in the afternoons. How's that going over as far as viewership? Or not viewership, listening.
Yeah.
I got TV mode.
No, that's okay. It goes well. We since pulled back a little bit, but just because of time constraints and we're very limited on staff right now as it is, and so because of that, we've had to pull back a little bit. But when we do have it, it's very well received. People like it. We, get lots of phone calls when we have the show, and we like to keep it local sports driven. So when we do it, we're not going to talk national sports. We're going to talk local, Indians, Browns, Cavs. We'll delve into the Steelers from time to time, but mostly high school. High school and college, local high school and college.
So you do focus on the local high schools on that, and on that show as well.
Yeah.
That's good. I love ESPN 970 because I'm a sports fan, so that's why I like that. But what I like even better, and that's why I was laughing when you talked about it, because you said the older generation, at my work, Magic 102.5. I mean, to me, that's my music, the 70s and the 80s. I love it. How's that doing, that station?
It's doing really well. We transitioned over to a network, I want to say about 2 years ago now, the Tomcat Radio Network, which Tom is based out of Cleveland. I actually worked with him in Akron for a time. And he's a great guy, knows the area well, and he knows our listeners well. He does a great job with the format he puts together, and takes a little of the pressure off of us to have to with 6 stations, we have 6 stations. With 6 stations and very limited staff, it's not always easy to be able to program all that music and get all that stuff together, and Tom does a great job for us on that.
Sure, I just love the station, I have to say. I would imagine, like you were saying earlier, 50s, 60s, is that your main audience there?
Age-wise, anywhere, we say anywhere from 34 to 64. You'll get some above 64, you'll get some below 34, just because that music speaks to many, many people. Even some of the, we find with our classic rock station that while we're gearing it for 25 to 54-year-old guys, we're getting, kids in high school, 18 to, 17, 18-year-olds that listen to the station. So.
I heard one of your commercials today on the Magic 102.5. You say, become a magic friend of the day. How do you become a magic friend of the day?
Simple, you just like us on Facebook, facebook.com/magic1025, or follow us on Twitter @magic1025. We just go through the list every week. We pick out 7 people, and those people are the friends of the day. There's nothing other than us saying hello to you every day.
Yeah, very good station, love it a lot. Another station that's probably your youngest station, you just mentioned you had 6 is Cougar 93.7 FM, and that's in Lake County?
Yes, that's the new one. It's based out of Lake County. The transmitter's is actually sitting in Madison. The studios are in Mentor on Route 20, near just down the road from Heisley Road, right next near Walmart in that area.
And what's the format for this station?
We call it a hybrid hot adult contemporary. Basically, it's going to be as current hit as you can get without getting hardcore rap music and things like that on it. So.
And that's doing well?
Yes, doing very well.
Does that get out here to Ashtabula County?
Yes, it does.
It does.
Yes, it does.
Okay, and that's 93.7 on the FM if you haven't heard Cougar. Another relatively new, although not so new anymore, 98.3 The Bowl, more country guaranteed.
Yes.
I'm going to say 10, 12 years old?
Yeah, 10 years old. We started it. That was one of the stations they brought me on to help launch, was that one in particular. And yeah, I want to say 10 years old now. Yes, in fact, we just had our 10th anniversary.
I am amazed. I'm not a really country music fan, but I am amazed at the people that love country music. And what's even more amazing to me is there's a lot of young people that like the country music. Is that what you're finding?
Yes, it by far is our youngest demographic and broadest demographic that we have. We've got kids as young as 6 years old listening, all the way up into 70s and 70 and 80-year-olds listening. It's a very broad demographic, but that's the thing you find with country music is lots of people like it. There really is no generation that you can hone in on with it.
A lot of country rock.
Yes, a lot of the newer country sounds. I like to joke, if Bon Jovi from the 80s had come out now, he'd be a country artist. A lot of that.
Interesting.
Well, a lot of that newer country sounds a lot like the old 80s classic rock. kind of stuff. And it's funny, if you go to a show, a little anecdote, I took my wife to see Luke Bryan last year. And my wife's not really a country music fan, but I said, just go to the show and you'll like it. So we sat there and we watched it, and she was noticing that all of the backing bands were old 80s classic rock guys with the long hair and the tattoos, and they're all wearing the Anthrax t-shirts, and they're playing the stuff they still played in the 80s, but it's country now.
One of your former employees there, Roger McCoy, he was the perfect guy for that show. I mean, he came across as country. To me, he did.
Yes. He was Ashtabula born and raised, had a horse farm on Route 20 in Saybrook. His family was big into the horse community in the area. Everybody knows Roger's mom, was big with the Ohio Horsemen's Council. He was country through and through.
Dave, you talked about, what's the word I'm looking for? Ratings, or who watches, I can't think of the word.
Demographics.
Demographics.
Yes.
How do you go about assembling those? How do you get those?
Well, luckily, we have a company that does that for us. It used to be Arbitron. Nielsen is the one who took it over. They do TV ratings as well. They've now taken over radio ratings, and they'll go and they compile the data for you so that you know who's listening, when they're listening, how much they're listening, how long they're listening, and then they rank it, based on who's the better stations in each, or who has the most listeners in each market. And then you're supposed to be able to use those numbers to go and set your rates for advertising and things like that.
Talking with Dave Miller of Media One radio personality here in Ashtabula County. Another one of your stations, Dave, is Mix 97.1 WREO, probably the veteran of all the radio stations.
Not the oldest, but it's the oldest FM we have, yes.
The oldest would have been the old WICA.
Well, ESPN 970 has been around for about 75 years. In fact, we just had our 75th anniversary a couple years ago, so a little more than 75 years.
And Mix 97.1, Mark Allen's, the famous Mark Allen's there. Jeremy James, I believe, is.
Yes,
And Jeremy James also does work on Cougar?
Yes, he's on the morning show on Cougar. He does Mix in the afternoons, the afternoon drive.
Good guy, Jeremy
Oh,
James.
yeah, great guy.
And then, see, do we got them all here? Oh, and the Fox, 107.5 with Comedy in the Morning and with Bob and Tom, if you like that kind of comedy. And it's also a classic rock station.
Yeah, that's the other one.
60s, 70s type?
Yeah, 60s, 70s, 80s, and we've started working in some 90s stuff. I took over programming that station 2 years ago, and have since shifted the music a little bit to add in some of the 90s stuff. Classic rock itself is the format is generalized as 15 years or older. And so when you look at it, something from 95 would be, it's 20 years now, 21 years, that would be considered classic rock. So we're starting to kind of fold slowly some of those 90s into it as well.
And of course, Kid Mitchell still on that one?
Yes, Kid Mitchell is there an afternoon drive 4 to 7. I'm actually on from 11 till 3 under one of my nicknames from college is Crash, and so that's...
Diving Dave too, right?
Well, that was one Roger made up when we started the bowl that I've been trying to get away from.
Here you do a lot of your DJing on a Saturday afternoon if I'm driving in the car. You're usually doing that on a Saturday afternoon mainly?
Yes, magic of radio. I'm not necessarily in the studio all the time, but yeah,
Right.
you can hear that.
Now, Dave, you do more than just that. You also do a lot of the engineering work, probably most of the engineering work, the mastermind work.
Yes, my official title is operations manager, which means I'm in charge of the on-air programming and engineering for all 6 of our radio stations. So when a transmitter goes down on a Saturday afternoon, I'm the one who gets the phone call.
And you never want to get that phone call.
No, I got it this past Saturday, and it's...
It was actually... 970 was off, I think.
Yeah, there were a few. The storms did some damage, and I was unfortunately 2 hours away visiting my parents that day. So it made life a little hectic, and I had to do some running and scrambling and get back into the area to kind of fix some stuff. But it adds a lot of responsibility to what I do. Yeah.
Now, have you had airtime on every one of these stations?
Not every one of the stations, no. I have a regular shift on 98.3 The Bull and the Fox. I do our high school and college broadcasts, that is in Ohio State or Bowling Green, on ESPN 970. I have at a time been on Mix, and I have filled in on Magic from time to time. I've yet to be on Cougar.
Dave, explain to the viewers, people when they think of DJs think they're going to sit down on the chair and they're going to press a button and play a song. But it's a lot more than that. Just counting prep time. I mean, you just
Yes.
don't walk in at 5 to 6
No.
before a 6 a.m. show and
No.
start pressing a button, I'm going to play this song.
It's funny. I'm training a new guy now, and he was real eager and ready to go. And I sat him down and I said, okay, and here's what we're going to do. And he did it, and he just kind of turned around and said, that's not as easy as it looks. And it's not. It's a lot of work, a lot of reading. I spend a lot of time. My wife doesn't like it, but at night I'm on my phone reading articles, trying to find out what to talk about the next day, trying to find the interesting stories, the things that people are going to relate to, the things that are local. We like to stay as local as possible. We like to talk about what's going on in our community, Ashtabula County as a whole.
You do a great job at that.
Thank you. It's not easy, because it's not every day there's a story to talk about, and it's not every day there's a story to talk about that's positive in our area. So we try to stay as positive as we can. Unfortunately, that's not always possible, but we try to stay as positive as we can. We try to stay as local as we can, and and above all, make it fun, because if we're not having fun doing it, you're not going to have fun listening. And that's what we want. We want to be that escape in your day when you're working, you're listening. You want to escape what's going on. You want fun, and we don't want to not be fun.
That's certainly true. Magic keeps me going all day long. You're also a broadcaster. You do high school sports with Brad Ellis, a former coach in the area. Where do you find the time to prepare for your broadcast with everything else you're doing at the radio station? How tough is that?
Football season is very tough. It takes me about three days to compile all the information, get what I need from coaches.
How
Get
receptive are the
rosters.
coaches?
Most are very receptive. You find a few here and there that it's very hard to get them, but eventually they'll sit down and they'll give you what you need. And then, there are a few coaches, not any in Ashtabula County, where it's Friday night, it's 10 minutes before kickoff, and I'm sitting in the locker room with them, getting their starting list from them. But most are very receptive for that. I work a couple hours a day on it, 3 days a week for football. Basketball's a little different. I can sit down probably a half hour before the game, grab a couple of rosters, talk to the coaches real quick, just ask them a couple of questions, sit down and do the game. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that basketball, so the pace is just faster. In basketball, there isn't as much time to fill, and if it does need filled, there's nobody better at it than Coach Ellis. And anytime he wants to talk on a basketball broadcast, I tell him, just go. Anything you say is going to be 100 times smarter than anything I have to say. So go ahead and
He
say it.
certainly does know the game.
Yes.
Defensive-minded coach.
Yes.
So he probably doesn't like these 75 to 68 games in basketball.
It's funny. We talk all the time off air because of the way we have to set up. We're actually sitting there watching the junior varsity game, and he'll say, "I don't understand why they don't just hold the ball for a minute, take a shot, and then go and play defense, and then come back and hold the ball. You're going to stop the other team from scoring because they're just not going to have the ball." And so that's what I thought he was going to do when he went back to the bench last year in Geneva. He didn't do that because, kids don't want to play basketball that way.
Yeah.
But, he's very smart and very, like you said,
Yes,
very
he is.
defensive-minded.
Yes, yes. How well do you enjoy doing the play-by-play?
Oh, I love it.
Do you have a favorite sport? I mean, do you like one better than the other? Obviously, you like them all, but
Yes,
because now you're doing high school baseball.
Yes, I
correct?
just started doing baseball a couple of seasons ago, and I'd like to, branch out and do more of the sports. I have to learn how to do some of the other ones. For me, I like basketball. I started out doing basketball And of course, when I started doing basketball, I was calling LeBron James's high school games, which makes
Oh, wow.
that even
Oh, man.
even nicer.
This is why you're an interesting person. We're
Yes,
getting
yeah.
all these facts here.
I like the pace of basketball. It's faster paced. I do like calling football. Baseball is, and if you listen to the broadcast, I'm getting better at it, but baseball is brutal with how slow it is. Now, luckily,
Really?
yes,
You
luckily,
mean trying to fill time in between
time to
pitches?
fill time. The best, Tom Hamilton with the Indians
Oh,
is one of
my
the
goodness.
best broadcasters in the business
Yeah.
because he makes it sound effortless,
Even if it's a boring game.
even if it's a boring game. And to sit there and try to call baseball because, for example, first pitch of the game, it's in there for strike one, counts 0-1. And now I have 20 seconds to fill with what? Because I don't have anything to talk about
Especially
in the game
radio.
yet.
TV, you can get away with it.
Yeah, and I'm good friends with Jim Rosenhaus, who
Okay,
calls games.
Tom's partner.
Yeah, Tom's partner, and he'll every once in a while he'll send me like the list that they get every day of reading that they have to do, and it's hundreds of pages from every team in the entire Major League Baseball, some minor league teams, and top prospects, things like that, things they have to read every day so that they have stuff to talk about in those times when the game is 7-1
Sure.
and there's not really much to talk about.
As long as the Indians have the 7.
As long as the Indians have the 7, that's right.
Excuse me. Cindy, I was going to say, now Dave's in their broadcasting career, we do selected Conneaut games, sir, which is easier. We already know our Conneaut thing, and we only got to concentrate on the other team. But for you, you don't cater to one team. You're going all over the area.
No, we focus mainly, because you guys take Conneaut, we'll focus mainly on Jefferson, Lakeside, Geneva, and Edgewood. We've since added St. John back into there for football and for some basketball now that they've started back in the OHSA and they started their program again. It's nice, to focus on those teams because now it gives me that, like you said, you only have to focus on the other team, and you'll have the Conneaut stuff the entire time. And so that makes it a little easier. Although, like you said, we did Warrensville Heights and Geneva this last
Thriller.
weekend. It was a
Looked
thriller.
like it was a seesaw game.
Yeah, well, in my opinion, Geneva gave them the game. There were 16 points scored by Warrensville Heights in the second half, both off of fumbles that Geneva gave them. That was the difference in the game. But yeah, you get teams like that where, I've got to study them. I have to sit down and you have to know who has the ball at all times. And in football, it's very difficult because you can't see. You have the number and that's it. You can't see anybody's face. In basketball, I very rarely even look at the number. I just can recognize the kids now, and so based on who they, based on their appearance, who they are.
Sure. Of course, with all the schools not being in like we used to have the Northeastern Conference, that makes it tougher.
Yeah, it makes it tougher because we like to keep things local. We like to do games that are county games. I would much rather do
Back to your local.
Yeah, Conneaut, Edgewood, Jefferson, Geneva, Lakeside, Edgewood, Lakes, I would much rather do all of those games. Unfortunately, the reality of that right now, that is not possible. Now, there's some rumor I won't get into that may change here in the near future.
Love rumors. No, I'm just.
No, I mean, yeah.
Dave, do you make the broadcast schedule?
I do, yes.
So do you make it in advance, or do you go week to week to see what the bigger game is? Do you do any of that kind of stuff?
I make them in advance just for sheer logistics purposes. It's not as simple as calling up an AD and saying, can I be at this broadcast this week? So I try to make it ahead of time as much as I can, but I leave room, wiggle room in for things like weather and things and like that. So like in basketball and football, I know I'm gonna have 10 games. Maybe if somebody makes the playoffs, I'll have an 11th or 12th game if they make it, if they keep going. In basketball, I will schedule 15 games, hoping to get 10 of them in In baseball, last year I scheduled 7 games and I got 3 of them in, I think. Just because the weather in Northeast Ohio is,
It's almost like baseball should be played in September.
yeah, you'd think.
When you're making that schedule out, Dave, do you look at rivals, like say a Geneva Madison, Ashtabula,
Yes.
Edgewood County, that kind of stuff? Do you look at rivals to try to get them both on? I know you said you
Yeah.
try to get county
Yeah.
teams.
Yeah, what I'll do is I will go through everybody's schedule and I'll actually plot it out on a calendar. And I will take everybody's list schedule and I will put them on a calendar and a grid for me to look at, and then I'll just go week to week. And the first thing I do is I say who in the county is playing each other. Well, that will get first priority. And then I'll just go down that list the entire time. And like, for example, Geneva, Warrensville Heights this last week, that was the only game of the schools we focus on. That was the only game in town. Everybody else had an away game. And so we decided to do that game because of that.
Who do you have this week?
This week is Canfield coming to Lakeside. And the reason we're doing that is because I haven't had a Lakeside game on the schedule yet. And that's the other factor that goes in is you only have 10 weeks, and I've got 5 schools, 6 schools I want to really focus in on and try to get their games in first. And so because of that, sometimes you end up taking a weird game that you wouldn't necessarily want to take on week 5 or week 4, but you haven't had the school yet, and you need to get them, you need to get their kids the coverage as well.
Sure.
That's the balancing act is, you're trying to help out every student athlete in the county, and sometimes because of that, some games get missed when some other games will get highlighted because of that.
Of course, this is the first year the Spartans are playing in the Pennsylvania Conference, so I'm trying to familiarize myself with those teams.
Yes.
But still trying to keep track of the county teams, and be interesting to hear what you say. From what I see so far in football, to me it looks like maybe Grand Valley might be the top team in the county.
Yeah, they were very good. They were a very good team last year.
Got this tremendous runner.
Yeah,
Hernandez,
yes,
I think
yes,
his name is.
yeah. Eduardo Hernandez, I think is his name.
Scored 5 touchdowns last week.
Yeah, they're a great team. Now, of course, they ran into Kirtland, but Kirtland was going to be ready this year for Grand Valley after beating them last year. Geneva is a very good team as well. Their
Bouncing
record,
back.
yes, their record might not show it. They had a big loss to Chardon in week 2, but Chardon is a potential playoff team this year, so they knew that one was going to be tough. They got a big win over Madison in week 1, and last week, really on paper, they beat Warrensville Heights. Unfortunately, on the scoreboard, it didn't come out that way. So I think having not seen Lakeside yet this year, having not seen a couple of the other teams, St. John, yet this year, we'll have PV for the first time here in a couple of weeks as well. Having not seen them, I would say Grand Valley and Geneva are probably your top 2 teams in the county right now.
Back to basketball for a minute. You just don't do the boys' games. You also do some girls' games. What's the difference broadcasting a girls' game versus a boys' game, or is there no difference?
There really is no difference, really. It's a little bit of a slower pace, but the rules of the game are the same. You may have some possessions where some big chunks of time where you won't see any scoring, and it's a lot of just back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But for the most part, it's the same game, same rules. Just different players.
Of course, now you took over the broadcasting from the legendary Gene Gephardt and Pat Sheldon and those guys, I believe.
And Joe Pigskin Pete.
Joe Pigskin Pete. Oh,
Yeah.
how could I forget Joe? Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. And Joe did a great job.
Yes.
Lost him way too soon.
Yes. Yeah. It'll be 5 years actually this January that we lost Joe, which
And we do a tribute to him every, is it February, I want to say?
January 26th is the day
Yeah.
that he passed away,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
so you've been doing the games for 5 years then?
Full
6
time
years.
for 5 years. I did fill in for Joe. A lot of people don't know just how sick Joe was toward the end, and so he would go and he would schedule the games, and he, by the end there, I think that last season, he made it to like 2 or 3, and I did I filled in for the rest. So I was always ready to go, and sometimes I get a phone call on Friday night and say, hey, you got to come and do the game. So full time I've been doing it 5 years now, but
Well, you guys do a great job at
thank
it.
you. Yeah.
A real great job. I look forward to listening to it when I can, if Conneaut's not involved in something. Let's close out back to the radio stations for a minute. So I'm gonna guess, but you would know better than me. As far as which one of these are number one, I'm gonna say 97.1, only because it's the veteran station. Would I be wrong?
You would be wrong.
Is it magic?
It is not magic, actually.
It's not, it can't be ESPN 970.
Unofficially, 107.5 FM the Fox. I'm not officially allowed to say, but 107.5 the Fox, then 98.3 the Bull. And that actually has just changed. That has actually just changed in the last few months. It had been 98.3 the Bull for about 4 years.
I figured, like I said, I know a lot of people that love the country. The classic rock surprises me a little bit. Do you get a lot of Bob and Tom listeners?
Yeah, we do. Actually, the funny part is the classic rock format is slowly becoming the #1 format again throughout the country, not just here, but throughout the country, simply because it's that generation that listens, that would still listen to the radio, not to sound old, but the kids don't listen to radio anymore necessarily. They are listening, they're the ones listening online. They listen to, Spotify and they listen to that kind of stuff. And radio's shifting to accommodate them, and we're working to do that. And, stations like Cougar 93.7 really are working to do that and are reaching them. But the tried and true radio listener would be the demographic of that classic rock.
The country doesn't surprise me, but the classic rock does. That really does. One more thing on radio.
Sure.
See, I lie a lot. I said that was going to be the last thing. The day of the websites now. Every one of these stations have a website.
Yep.
How helpful is that to you, especially during the winter season when you got all these school closings coming in and you don't have to keep interrupting the music every 5 minutes because you can look at the website as well.
Yeah, it comes in, the funny part is when you look at it, when you really look at it, it does come in handy, but even that right now, the website is kind of on a downturn when it comes to school closings. I've gotten to the point now where I get my school closings the way just about everybody else does. I get a text message from the school onto my phone.
Oh, okay.
So parents, teachers.
The superintendents aren't calling the radio station?
No, nobody ends up having, you don't have to anymore. They just put you on the call list, and everybody gets a text message and a tweet that says school's canceled today. And so, a lot of times it's funny, we're putting it on the radio, but a lot of times parents know already before we even say it that school's canceled.
Mm-hmm. And you get them on pretty early, like as early as 5:30 sometimes?
Yeah, my phone starts going off about 4:30 in the morning, and then my wife shoves me out of bed, and then I get downstairs and I start posting everything online, and yeah.
Uh-huh. Well, Dave, this has been fun. I'm glad you took the time. I know you have a busy schedule. I know you got to prepare for your football game Friday night.
It's Monday. I'm okay now. I panic like Thursday afternoon is when I start panicking.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. Dave Miller of Media One Radio, my guest this week on Around the Town with Chuck. Next week we'll have Lori Riley, Conneaut Area City Schools Superintendent. Thanks for watching.